Welcome back to the ASN Dad Chat. We're a podcast and community dedicated to making sure no ASN dad in Scotland has to walk this path alone.
Our goal is simple: real talk, real honesty, and sharing our own experiences to help you navigate the system. Whether you're in our meetup group already or just finding us now, you've got a seat at the table.
And just a reminder, we aren't experts, we're just dads, and this is just experiences and opinions, not medical advice and not legal advice. Now let's go on with the chat today.
Hello and welcome to ASN Dad Chat. I'm Andy and today I'm joined by Sam.
Hello.
And Glyn.
Hello.
And this week what we're looking to discuss is communication. Just right across the board in terms of how we've helped our kids communicate, how we have found that it's helped them develop, how it's helped them kind of reduce meltdowns, and just any sort of kind of tips in our history with regards to communication, because I think it's a big topic.
Absolutely, it's different for every child, and we know, it's taken us a long time to get used to our child's own communication, so it's very difficult for us to fully understand, and it's, if we can share any kind of tips and tricks about that sort of stuff, then that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and I think all our kids have got a marvellous way of different ways to try and let us know what they want. It can be anything from the echolalia, or it can be just simple, small things. I know for me, most recently, Noah has started to interact more when we're talking with toys. Obviously, he's still only 1.5, but he's now grabbing my hand when he wants me to do something with a toy, which is it's the start of his communication. Really, so he's not speaking that much. Obviously, he's got a lot of dadas and he makes noises and stuff like that. But that interaction where he's asking me to essentially hit the top of the toy to make it go spinning. Obviously, that's his sort of starting of communication with me.
Yeah, definitely, because that's the thing. So obviously people think of communication as just talking and saying things, but it obviously starts before that. I was just saying with Ashton, so Ashton from a very young age would kind of pull us towards things. He would never really point or anything. He didn't really have any sort of gestures or anything like that, but he would always pull us towards things before he did get any sort of speech. And then obviously before that he had that regression and lost that speech. We had to kind of start from the beginning again.
Yeah, it must be quite a surreal feeling. I haven't experienced a regression yet with my children. I know our oldest, he regressed before I met him. So I've heard stories about it, but I've never actually experienced it myself. But it's certainly something I'm looking out for in case with my youngest. At the moment, his communications actually came on a lot in the last kind of year or so. His speech was very delayed due to a lot of kind of throat surgeries from a young age. So we kind of played it off as it might come along, but it very much came. We had to really kind of we looked into Makaton. I know we've spoke about Makaton before, and we'll cover it today as well. So we started Makaton, and then as we started, that's when he decided that he wanted to speak. So but his languages came on something he comes up to me now, and he's so bossy. He just comes up to you. He drags me by the shirt now, and he's like, Daddy, treat. And I'm like, he says it with so much gusto. Like if you don't give him it, he's going to lose it. So it's just the way he says it. But I think all of our children are so different in the way they communicate, and that's obviously something that we are now used to as parents, and we're still understanding and we're still learning new things. So I don't know how you guys feel about that as well.
I think obviously on the touch of regressions, that is something that I think we can probably touch on a bit more as we go on for the episode, but it's definitely something that Elijah struggles with constantly, I'd say. But I think it all depends on what he's interacting with or what he's watching. I've said before that certain things that he'll watch will change how his interaction with conversation is with us. It's if it's very alphabet based, or if it's like his one again at the moment is he's doing his alphabets, and he's looking at his intros. So when he's doing his intros, like his 20th Century Fox, his Disney, he's his communication is just doing the noises from the intros, like it's the music that he's like essentially screeching, and that's from morning to evening. But there'll be mixtures of conversation there as well. One thing he has got good at when we're trying to talk to him, obviously, if he hurts himself or he's had like a knock, we're like, Elijah, are you okay? And he will be like, I'm okay. And I'm like, okay. Buddy, are you sure? And he goes, I am sure.
That's good.
That's good. I don't know if that's just him going through the motions of me just telling me that, or if it is, obviously, but every time it does seem to be like he is okay after that as well. So I think for functional language, he's intermittent. And I think, I don't know what that is like for everybody else, but I've seen that with other kids of ours, so that their functional language comes and goes, but there is still something that still remains.
Yeah, and I think we can obviously kind of touch on the echolalia side in a bit more detail, but just kind of going from what you were saying about it being kind of dependent on what he is into. I remember that was similar with Ashton, where he was really, really enjoying watching on YouTube. It was different kind of ASMR videos. It was like sand getting cut and like slime and things like that, and we found that his speech just dropped massively because he wasn't hearing as much stuff as he would be usually if he was watching like Paw Patrol or Miss Rachel or any of these things. And people obviously turn their nose up about having YouTube or tablets or anything, but the amount of speech that Ashton got from just watching these things, and it was evident that it was playing a massive part, that when he was solely listening or solely watching these things on YouTube that didn't have any sort of vocalizations or anything in it, that it massively affected him. So I think it does go to show that it does have a massive part in it. I mean, kind of going back to the kind of start for Ashton, I think it was during COVID, we looked into speech and language, so we ended up going private for speech and language, because it was that way we were kind of, after regressions, we're right, we need to try and see what we can do here into kind of full dad mum mode, to see what we can do to help him. And it was one of these things where I remember at the very start, you're given these kind of simple techniques that, you know, this is way too simple, I already know all this stuff, I don't really know how this is going to help. But the small things that kind of still stick with me today, it would be things like, if you're asking him a question, just count to 10 in your head, give him some time to actually respond. He doesn't have to respond straight away, give him some time to process. It's going to take him a bit longer. Things like, I remember we would have family over, it'd be the same thing they would usually do with neurotypical kids. It'd be like, what does the dog say? Woof, woof, woof. And it's that way of, if you're going to answer for him, he's not going to want to reply. Like there's no point, so you need to actually give them that space. Things like that where you just hadn't really thought of it as things that are so simple. And another one that I remember you got told was, don't repeat things so many times in a different way. It's just natural to be like, right, Ashton, come for your dinner. And be like, Ashton, dinner time. Dinner, Ashton, come on and get it. And essentially you're just saying things in 5 different ways so quickly. In his head, he's like, how is he going to pick up the first one when the 5th one just arrived and you've just said 5 different demands to him in 5 different ways? So it's wee things like that helped massively to help him understand that in terms of speech and language. I think it's that way where in my head I was like, okay, we're going to do speech and language, they're going to work with Ashton, whereas it's essentially more you're going into speech and language for them to train you to help your child essentially. I know that Glyn, I think you guys did speech and language before. I don't know if Sam had any either.
Yeah, we did it for a bit, but we didn't enjoy the experience at all. I think I said previously on the podcast, it felt like they were trying to train a dog.
Yeah.
And she didn't mask that at all. It was hard for us to sit and watch. Obviously, we'd gone to a couple of sessions with our local GP, and it was a case of, right, well, we're going to do this, but obviously our kids being our kids, he wanted to go play with all the toys that were in the room, and he was trying to engage with those toys, but obviously she would just kind of pull him away from them and try and get him to interact with these like certain things. And they wanted us to try and use PEX boards, but at the time, like Elijah wasn't there yet. He couldn't comprehend obviously the idea of these. And obviously, it was we did a lot of things to try and change it to our own styles. Obviously, we brought our own toys in for him to use, so he knew what the toys were. We made our own photos and pictures of these pet boards, obviously, so he knew what these certain things were, like home, outside the house, Nana's house, toys, dinner, his favourite sweets. But it just didn't integrate as well as his speech language did at nursery.
Yeah, and it seems that way, and it's actually something I was going to touch on. I don't know if we just kind of get lucky or what, because we had went private, and it did feel like it was personal to Ashton. So it was the videos and things, and this was still online, so we would give videos, and essentially we would be given different things. Like, I think this would work for Ashton, this wouldn't work for Ashton. Try this, okay, you've done this now try this way, sort of thing. So it was essentially, for me and Cheryl, it was really good, because essentially you were kind of getting checked up on each week to be like, okay, what you are doing is good, keep going for the next one. And again, even though it's these simple things, it was just good to have someone that was kind of reassuring you, but then also giving you extra things on top of it. And it's I think obviously it is a shame that it wasn't as personal for Elijah, because I think that was one of the big things for us, that it did feel that it was like essentially like a programme that was especially for Ashton. Even when we did switch over to the NHS speech and language, and they came out to the house and everything, and it was a similar sort of thing. Again, it was completely Ashton focused, giving us kind of techniques specifically for him that we could work on. And again, I can't stress enough, it's the simplest things that we still use today.
No, I think in terms of our kind of journey, our oldest, we're still very much in touch with speech and language for him. They've been really good in the sense that they've not only, I think they kind of summarised a way for us to think about when, you know, he's responding to us. They basically said, along with his kind of echolalia, I know we've briefly touched on that, but they basically said that the way to think about it is when we pose him a question, or when we expect a response out of him, and the way in his brain, it's like almost like a kind of tombola of his phrases in his head, and you know, he's spinning it, and whatever phrase comes out, that's what he tries to like fit into the gap to make sense, you know. And I think when we discussed that, I think it really kind of blew my mind when I thought about it, because I was like, well, no wonder you would get frustrated if, you know, the first few times that response didn't fit, or we then posed that question, kind of like what you were saying there, Andy, about, you know, posing the question in 5 different ways. You know, and it becomes so overwhelming, you know. I think for us right now, we are utilising like actual real life pictures of things, and assigning what that is, the word to that. We found out that because we were using like a kind of cartoon one, he was using a cartoon one at school, but we actually had the kind of speech and language therapist out, and she was like, he doesn't have that social imagination of these cartoons. You know, it was just like a box with a triangle on it. That's what the house was. It wasn't actually a picture. So they've been really good. We took like pictures and sent it away. They came back and they had like laminated little cutouts for like a now and next board and stuff like that, which has been really handy. So we are kind of still in the process of that. I think it's just like you said as well, Andy. It's very much not only techniques for your child to develop, but it's also techniques for you to bridge that gap as well, because communication is obviously, you know, it's your bread and butter, but it comes from both sides, and it's so important that, you know, you're making that kind of effort to meet your child halfway almost.
Yeah, and I think it'll be that way that we'll all do it in the house now, that we will speak completely differently than we would do on the show. For example, we'd saying things in certain ways, different accents, almost broken English, just
absolutely.
to try and to get things to make sense. But I think that is what it's about a lot of the time, where we would be using full sentences, whereas it'd be a case of, whereas now it's just Ashton, dinner, because you don't need to add and overcomplicate these things. It's just so much easier, because you can just imagine, if you're to think of it a different way, if you were learning French, for example, and someone says a sentence to you, you're trying to figure it out, and they go, and then they say it another way again, and then they say it another way again, and another way again. You're just going to go crazy.
I'd be like, hold on a minute, man, I've not even got my head around the first.
Exactly.
Do you know what? It's something I remember years and years ago. I done a part-time job, and it was in a kitchen as a dish cleaner and stuff
porter?
like that. Yeah,
Okay,
kitchen porter. And that's when I really realised that multiple, instructions at a time completely like bamboozled me. I just couldn't keep up.
I've worked in the kitchen. I know that. Like
It was
you get
just
several things all at
insane.
once.
Like it was like right, you've got these two, prepare 3 garnishes, do these 2 desserts after that, do this, and you need to make sure this pot's done. And I was sitting there going, dear Lord, where do I even begin? So, I think kind of looking at it that way, no wonder no wonder that can cause frustration. It can cause meltdowns. And I think for me, something that I'm really working on is like trying to be patient a bit, like trying to be more patient. Because there is days when I'm just like, I'll tell my oldest to go and get his nappy, but he can't find it, and I'll be like, oh, it's over there. No, it's behind you. No, it's right there. And I sat there and I go, I kind of have to just get up and do it, because I'm like, he's bamboozled. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have a clue what's going on. So it's a work in progress. That's really what communication is, isn't it? It's just an ASN for sure.
I don't want anybody to think I am disparaging speech and language with my own personal experience with it.
That's a different podcast.
Is that the ASN Rants podcast?
That's Friday nights. No, I know people have better interactions with it. I think it was just how we'd had it at the time. It just didn't work for us. But it's each to their own. Obviously, some people have had like you said with Ashton, you've had such a success with that that it just felt different. I think we just got caught at the wrong time.
Saying not everything's going to suit every kid. There'll be certain things that work for Elijah, it doesn't work for Ashton. Same with your own kids as well, Sam. It's funny that, and I think you've said before, looking back at old videos, and I remember you were saying about before Elijah had kind of had a regression or before diagnosis, and looking back at these videos, and we'll have some of Ashton, and it'll be looking at. So we actually got a book printed with all the family and friends in it, so that we could go through and point, who's this, who's that, and he still does these sort of things to this day. He just loves identifying things, and he'd be going through it and he'd just be making noise. He'd be like, oh, and we would still know, be like, oh, you're saying this, and I think that was one of the big things through speech and language as well, that we would be sending videos over, and she would come back, oh, he's trying to say this, he's trying to say that. It's that way of trying to understand that all these kind of noises and grunts and things, a lot of them are kind of early vocalizations that are kind of trying to come out. But it is funny how you do just understand your own child's kind of language. Can think of it. And I mean, I remember one of the other dads in the podcast had said about how he was putting his daughter into, I think it was a holiday clip or something.
Yeah.
And you always feel that you're given kind of too many instructions. You worry about what it is, but it's essentially that he knew the way that she spoke specifically, had a very specific way of speaking, and he worried that the holiday club wouldn't understand it. I think it just goes to highlight that we're all kind of good at translating the kind of lingo that goes on with our kids. We all kind of get used to decoding.
Yeah, there's not a Duolingo course for speech development, unfortunately.
Not yet.
Not yet, no.
I think if I was to try and give the kind of A to Z of all of my children's communications, it would be probably about a year. Like that would be a course, a full-time course in itself. To try and explain that to somebody who's watching, our children. And I've done it before. I've dropped off my stepdaughter at school, and I've been like, right, so she says this, and she'll mean this, and this is what, and they kind of look at you like, we'll figure it out, and they probably look at you like, man, you guys are you're off your head, but
there's I think I said to you before, there's certain words that Ashton will use that doesn't mean what the word actually means. So for example, if we're putting Ashton to bed and we leave the room, he'll jump up and go cuddle, 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 cuddle. But he doesn't want to cuddle. He just wants you to come back in the room. So he just knows that if he says cuddle, or if we've said cuddle at some point, it will run towards him. So that same with, I think it's if he wants the light on or off, he'll usually just say off, either way for on and off sort of thing. And I think we've all got these kind of keywords or kind of chosen phrases that you know what they mean, but if they said it to someone else, it would make absolutely no sense.
Absolutely. I think about our oldest. He always says, what is it? He always says toast and spoon.
Yeah.
And the amount of times that somebody's been in when he's woken up and the first thing he does is go up to them, and he doesn't always have the best kind of like personal space, so he's like literally nose to nose with that person, and he's like toast and spoon, and they just kind of turn around and go, what? 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 And we're like, oh no, he wants his breakfast. But it's through experience, that we've picked these things up, and that we know what our children are asking about. And like you said, like if I was to see Ashton and he said cuddle, instinctively I would be like, all right.
Yeah, and you were like, no, it doesn't mean that. No. Get away.
Yeah. Back off. No, but yeah, it's just that it's a learning curve, and I think you have to try and be as kind of open-minded as possible, because it is completely different, and there's no like you were saying, Glenn, there's no kind of there's no instruction manual with this.
No,
it's just
and it all comes down to like starting interactions with our kids as well, and how you mean to go on. Obviously, you need to listen to them and what they're trying to actually say to you. I mean, I know there's a young girl at the groups that we tend to go to, who like sniffs your hand when she first meets you, to kind of, not to gauge the type of person you are, but that's her way of like, I'm getting to know you, which I always find was like intriguing.
Yeah, it's just being open to anything at all, anything that's kind of going to make the children comfortable. I think that communication, especially for Ashton, has been the biggest kind of cause and solution to meltdowns. Around about when he was about kind of 2ish, that was when he had the most meltdowns, and that's when his head banging was at its worst, and he'd be banging off kind of corners of walls, off the floor. But it is no surprise that when you've got a child who's developing that isn't able to communicate what they want, it must just be so frustrating. So
yeah. Was that when he regressed? Sorry, or was that like before then, or?
It was round about that point. That was when he was starting to kind of develop, and then he managed to obviously pick a few things up to help us communicate. Again, for us, it's always been things like identifying things or kind of getting him to sing songs. One of his favourite ones I can remember helping him try and talk through was the "Do You Like Broccoli" song. So we'd go through that.
No,
and we'd
I don't.
Exactly.
No, I don't.
And he would just kind of grunt his way through it, and we'd be delighted because like, he's talking. But yeah, I think it is massive communication, and I think as parents we all do anything we can to try and help them communicate so that they can let you know what they want, because it can just be something as simple as they didn't want to go out, or they wanted a specific toy, or we wanted some water. But if they can't tell you this, then I think any of us, if we were dropped into a foreign country that no one understood us, would be in the same sort of mindset.
Absolutely, you can't turn. It's one of those that. How many times have we been, abroad or anything like that? I've certainly been, I've turned around and been like, does anybody speak English?
Yeah.
Our children don't have that luxury to do that with us, so.
No, and it comes down to trying to just, like you said before, having that patience to just take the time and try and figure out what they're after. And it can be a struggle sometimes. Because as you said, Andy, like when they are trying to communicate to you what they want and they can't quite get those words out,
it's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking because you can see them trying so hard to communicate. I think that's why a lot of our kids will just devolve back to just I'll take you to it.
Yeah.
we've spoken about echolalia like through the entirety of this so far, in one form or another. How did you feel when Ashton and your kids, obviously, they started having echolalia? Did you have a thought, me like, oh, my kid's speaking? Like before you understood what this actually was?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we should start by telling people what echolalia is.
That's a good, yeah.
Okay.
Because I've just realised...
You got that definition ready for us, have you?
Just off the top of my head.
ChatGPT.
That's it. But echolalia itself isn't specific to kids with ASN. I think it is like a natural development thing as well, but it is more common in kids with autism usually. But it is the involuntary or unprompted repetition of words, phrases or sounds spoken by someone else. And there are two main types: immediate echolalia, which would be repeating something straight away, or delayed echolalia, so repeating words, phrases or anything, things from TV shows. It could be hours, days, weeks, months later. But yeah, back to you, Glyn. I'm trying to think when it was with Ashton. Thinking back now, I think I would have just been delighted with any sort of speech coming out.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think I would have really understood what it was at that point. Not initially. That it was just repeating things from TV shows, until obviously the American accents and everything came out, and the kind of 100% match for exactly what's been said. But I think at that point you are just taking any sort of win. You're not really bothered if it's a case of you've repeated something that Chase has said from Paw Patrol. You're just happy that there's speech there.
Yeah, I think the same way with when I first met my oldest. You know, his speech was very kind of... it was very minimal. He didn't really speak too much up until he was about 4.5. And then when he did, it was very like broken up English, kind of like what we were saying. You know, it was snack, drink. It was kind of, those were the two main staples. And over time it's developed, and he's still classed as non-verbal, but he has that kind of basic layer of being able to communicate his his needs. And then my stepdaughter, she was about 2 when she started like properly speaking, and because she went from kind of very very limited like sounds and words to just full blown conversations, and it was it really kind of, it was so, you know, I think I looked at both of the kids at the time, and I was like, it's chalk and cheese. They're both so different in how they are like advancing, and I think it was quite hard because you then have to kind of custom tailor your approach to both.
Yeah.
So I think what was it, our oldest, his echolalia is very much like Paw Patrol and things that he's watched in the past, but he also can then repeat kind of phrases. So me and my partner are having to be careful because he's starting to pick up swear words and stuff like that. And we're like, oh no.
Elijah's done that quite a bit. We've had a couple of slip ups at school. Worst one for that for us was he come across like a reel, as it were, on YouTube, where it is a person drawing a pig. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever seen this. Is
this the one that's circle?
Yes, it's that one. Yeah.
Wait, what one?
So it's one circle, one big circle, one circle, one circle, one big circle. And then he goes, nipple, 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 nipple. So he was just walking around school going, nipple, 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 nipple. And we were like, we are so sorry. And like, he goes to a Catholic school, so they were a bit what's cool about it. But his teacher was like, it's the body. Like he's just doing a song, like he can't help it. So we understand this is just a part of the body type, so we get past it. But that was him for days on end. And I feel like I've said before, obviously he goes through tangents and goes through like mixes of his hyper focuses when it comes to communication with like things like that. So when that one comes around, I'm like, oh no,
not again.
Me and Jade would just be like, it's that phase again. I'm like, cool, no worries. I was going back to echolalia though. I was unaware of that at all, completely. I've heard of things like having an earworm, or like repeating a phrase in your head, or like not being able to kind of, you hear a song in your head, or you can hear like there's words in your head and you just can't put them together. So that would be my kind of understanding from that for personally. But I had no concept of it at all before being like explained to me. So I remember Elijah just kind of like watching Hey Dougie and started to repeat it. I'm like, brilliant, he's picking up words. Like this is a good thing. Like we're moving towards something. And then Jade had kind of sat me down and was like, this is echolalia. This is something that he will do. Okay, so at that point, that was when I was like, okay, I need to understand this better. So I went into, again, full research mode, and to better understand what this was. And it wasn't just a case of he was learning words, it was a case of he's just repeating this. Similar to yourself, obviously, previously, for a lot of, up until like the last year or so, we would have called Elijah nonverbal. But I call it pre-verbal at this point. Obviously, I don't think that's really an accurate diagnosis or anything like that, but he has the communication there. Like, he can tell us what he wants. He can tell us what he needs to an extent.
Well, I was going to say with what you were saying about I'm fine.
Yeah.
He's putting things into context, which I think especially with like echolalia, it's not all what you get back isn't contextual.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I'll be sitting there and I'll speak to my oldest about maybe what he wants for dinner, and he might just blurt out a phrase from Paw Patrol, and it's almost like he's got it stored.
Yeah.
In his brain, it's just there for when he's excited or something like that. And I think something that I would say with echolalia as well that I've noticed is, he takes these phrases and he applies them to like how he, like certain times of how he feels. So like if he's really upset, that's when he goes like maybe sort of like someone call Ryder, when he's really kind of frustrated.
Yeah. And
it does kind of break your heart a wee bit, because you're like, oh, he's using that phrase.
It's also clever though as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's really, I find it fascinating, but it like I can kind of touch on with what you'd said before, it can be quite soul destroying to watch them try so hard to like meet you with what you're asking of them. So
I think the thing with echolalia that Cheryl and I have always tried, as soon as we kind of knew, okay, this is Ashton, he's going to have a lot of this, it was that way of, right, okay, how can we try and convert this into some sort of functional use? Okay. So a lot of the time we'll find that we will kind of step into his world, and it might be a case of the episode, or you kind of understand where it's came from, you try and catch his attention that way. So I mean, we've found that with Ashton, he can, I don't know if it's the same with your kids, he can sometimes get stuck in loops, and it's quite tiring. You can tell it looks like it just looks exhausting. It's just the same thing, round and round and round and round. It's quite hard to kind of get them out of it. But at the same time, we have also found that when he is having meltdowns, sometimes kind of switching him back into that echolalia, so maybe talking to him about an episode, or just starting kind of repeating his echolalia to him, it kind of calms him down. It's almost as if right now he likes talking about certain things from to be fair, his thing just now is actually talking about the phones again. So we'll just start talking to him, like Mummy's phone, Daddy's phone, Uncle Ian's phone, Auntie Katie's phone, Zoe's phone, Kirsty's phone, and he'll just start repeating them over and over, and it's as if it totally grounds him and brings him back down. So I think it was trying to find the use out of something that is going to be a kind of major part of his life, because yourself, a lot of it is just complete random, and you'll be trying. I don't know if you guys ever do it where they'll say things and you and your partner are trying to figure out, like, we need to figure out where has that came from. Like Ashton was going around the house going Patu for ages. We're like, what is that came from? And I can't remember if it was Cheryl and me we found out, and it was essentially an episode of Katie's Classroom about brushing your teeth, and that was her spitting out the water.
Right, okay.
And that was Ashton's thing. So you're trying to figure out, and it's just random things. I remember for ages they kept going on about beaks. He would just start talking about beaks, and his thing currently is, because most of the things that he'll watch on YouTube will be there'll be live streams at some point.
Yeah.
So he'll just be sitting there and he'll be like, hello to Luca from Kentucky, and he'll be going through all these different places and just random stuff.
People getting shouted out in the middle of the day.
That. Exactly. So it is entertaining, but it also looks exhausting a lot of the time. So I think it is just trying to...
So Luca from Toronto, if you're listening, hi.
Well, he does say that a lot of the time as well. He'll go, a big thank you to the firefighters from Toronto, the Toronto firefighters.
Oh,
so yeah, he's got his accents down to a T.
God, I was the other week there. Our oldest, he came up to me, and I just turned the TV on in the morning for him, and he stared at me, and something that he says "wabasi," which means want to see.
Right.
So he came up and was like, "Wabasi, jingly jangly jungle," and I was like, "Jingly jangly jungle? What is this?" I was like, "You only watch Paw Patrol. You only watch like Thomas the Tank Engine, all of these types of things."
That rings a bell to me.
Yeah. So it turned out it was our youngest. He watches on BBC iPlayer. It's Ra Ra the Noisy Lion.
Yes.
And it's the Jingly Jangly Jungle.
Right.
And but that's the phrase that he picked up and that he uses to identify that. And then what was it? The other one he uses is there's a show on Disney Plus called it's the Mickey Mouse Funhouse.
Clubhouse.
There's the Clubhouse, but there's also one called the Funhouse.
Oh, okay.
And it's like the house is animated and they go on adventures, etc. But the Funhouse has like it's the face, but it's like a white circle and then like eyes, nose, and a mouth. And he came up to me and he was like, "Wabasi Silver Moon," and I was like, "Silver Moon?" And I was like, "What in the world is that?" I had no idea. And then we'd put it on at some point throughout the day. And he came up to me and he was like, "Silver Moon," and I was like, "Oh," and I turned around to my partner and I was like, he has identified that as that, and I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You know.
Yeah, I think it is beneficial because I feel like Ashton's built a lot of kind of relationships, especially with the parents, with his echolalia, because he just loves repeating a lot of things he'll say. So, like for example, like when Ashton takes someone's phone, he'll give them it back straight away because he just wants to hear them say thank you or something. So like one of Ashton's PAs will go, "Oh, thanks," and Ashton will just repeat it like perfectly. When we were at soft play last night, and Ashton spent the full time with a parent that he had never met before, because he was laughing his head off the full time because the guy was quite happy to give his phone to Ashton, giving it back, and Ashton was obsessed with how he said, "Oh, thanks." And Ashton was killing himself all night, so he was just following him about, and he just loved the kind of repeating of what they were saying. It was almost that kind of immediate echolalia, and it was going around all the different parents, repeating what they'd say, take their phones, and I think it's that whole way of that he's kind of built that into his routine now. So it helps. So yeah, definitely one that's good and difficult at the same time, but yeah, positive when it came about at first, because any speech was good at that point.
I think something, just to touch on what you were saying there, Andy, I think it's so good that somebody that hadn't met him before also met him halfway with that, you know. I think
it's massive.
Yeah, I think sometimes people people underestimate how important that is, you know. Like I remember what was it, one of my partner's best friends, she has a child with additional support needs, and we bumped into them at Asda, and he was kind of stimming, and he came over and he kind of wrapped his arms around me. So he's non-verbal, but he wrapped his arms around me, and I kind of cuddled. I just kind of cuddled into him, and I was like, "Hi, bud, how you doing?" And he like looked up and smiled, and she was like, "He doesn't do that for anybody else." And you know, just meeting that child halfway there, you know, it makes all the difference sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
No, definitely does. I think it's just having that kind of open, and I think that's what these sessions are good at, to go to these ones, especially to having different parents there if you've not met them. I think everyone's obviously all fighting the same fight essentially, so it's good to have that, especially for your own anxiety. Another thing I'd like to touch on, I know obviously you touched on it, Sam, previously. I don't know how much, well, obviously Glyn, you know as well about Makaton, obviously the groovers and things as well, yeah. How much experience, or is that anything that you guys used in terms of development early on or anything? Or
so we've never had to really go too much into Makaton. Elijah's learned a little bit at school when they're doing songs. They teach him through with the songs how to do the words, and he's picked up a bit from the grooves as well. But it's never anything we've had to put into place for his communication. It's definitely something that I probably should look into more of, and I probably will do going forward. Just in case anything does happen, he has a regression, and we need to look at this differently. We've got a friend whose child is just starting to do Makaton, around about the same age as myself with Elijah, and they were essentially told that obviously this might be the most communication he's going to achieve, so you need to find new ways to learn, to communicate with each other. And they're starting this Makaton journey with him now, and he's picking up really well. It's amazing. It's good to watch as well when they learn these things as well, and it can make it so much easier to kind of gauge forward with the kids.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things with Makaton, it's obviously not to be there in place of speech. It's kind of going kind of hand in hand with it. Yeah, exactly, and that's what we find with Ashton. I mean, we learned it initially through Ashton's school, through Siobhan from the Glasgow Groovers. We thought it'd be something that would be beneficial. There wasn't any sort of signs that Ashton was going to relate to it or anything, but again, at that point, you're willing to try anything that will help communication. And so we picked up some of the basics in like an introduction session, but it wasn't until Ashton started watching Mr. Tumble on TV, and that he was going
very is it proficient? Is that the word?
Prevalent.
He uses it very.
He uses it very well. Yeah, I think between him,
I can't even remember the word.
I think between him and Ashton going to all the Glasgow Groover sessions, it was almost as if that echolalia from a non-verbal perspective kicked in. So Ashton just copied all the signs that he would see, and he'd be going around the house just rapidly doing all these signs, and we would be having to message Siobhan to be like sending videos like, what are these signs mean? And she'd be like, that's a full sentence, what is this? So at that point we went back to Siobhan, did our level 1, and we just knew that this could be something that could help Ashton. Even though he did have that kind of speech, there'll be a lot of times where he'll struggle to get words out, and I'll say to him, like, show me the sign, and he'll be able to sign it instead. So it's that way of, if he does struggle with any speech, I can try sign it to him, and it's just another kind of something that can help him avoid that frustration of not being able to get his point across. So it's definitely been massive for us just to have that extra helper.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I learned a bit about Makaton. I had a kind of extra course when I was at university. So I'd done a bit of kind of Makaton when I was doing my teaching. I found it was brilliant, and I think it obviously works. And it's I think I've actually started using it a lot more with my youngest. His speech has came on, like I was saying, but it all kind of really began with Makaton. I think something that he would kind of look at you, and you could tell he was wanting something. So we done it where if we put like your kind of two hands together and press them together, and that was more. So he would run up to us and go more, and he would like touch his hands together. That was through Makaton, and that's how we knew he wanted something. And it's now evolved where he can come up and you can go eat, or he kind of takes his fist and like puts it down his tongue, and that's like drink to him. It's not that's not the actual Makaton symbol. But
you've taught him these in your own style, similar to obviously like you've made this connection with him for communication, so that is your way of like making it your own.
It's like your own kind of personal Makaton, if that makes sense. You'll find your own kind of way it works.
Ashton actually took, so we had to try and re-change certain things, because Ashton learned quite a lot of signs from Miss Rachel, which was like the American Sign Language, to then get him to try and switch over to using Makaton. Took a while, but yeah, it was a lot easier. But as I say, any sort of communication at all, if you've got some sort of sign or anything that works for your child, I'm sure there's not going to be some sort of police running about that's going to cross you off and using the wrong sign for something.
Do you know what? I think my partner she had almost a personal vendetta against Miss Rachel for ages, because every time she would do the Can You Say Mama, you know that song. Anytime that happened, when my son was, I think it was about maybe like 8 or 9 months, he would look and he would go, Dada.
we've had that as well.
he would say Dada, but not Mama.
Yeah, we definitely had that as well.
She was like, honestly, I don't know what it is. Anytime she sings that song, he says Dada.
We never really did Miss Rachel. I think
she's brilliant, to be fair.
Elijah never grasped onto any of that, so it was strange. We have tried to put it on with Noah about, but it doesn't engage with it. I don't think it's up for him yet, but probably something we'll continue to kind of throw in there, because there is communication to that as well. As much as it might be terribly annoying for us parents sometimes to have to listen on loop in the background, but it's there, it helps, so that's something we need to do.
It does, yeah. That Ashton got a lot of speech from that as well, because a lot of it is to try and learn to talk. There's specific episodes. I remember when we first got into Miss Rachel, she only had like 1 or 2 videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
I remember being on with Ashton, being on like Facebook Live with her, and she was like, "Hi Ashton," and everything, and like before everything was kind of as big as it is now. But yeah, it's been massive. I think that our videos have been great in terms of getting these kind of techniques across for learning. So yeah, beneficial. More like that would be good. And I get another reason why screen time is positive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think we touched on it before, that screen time varies very much with children with additional support needs. But I think especially when you're striving to get more communication out of your child, the internet is certainly a fantastic place. I think at the moment my youngest, he plays like a lot of, we've got like a kind of tablet that's games, and it's not so much like videos, but it's like little educational games and stuff like that. And sometimes he'll repeat like the kind of phrase, so it'll be like matching a character to like a character's top half to a character's bottom half, and if he'll drag it purposely and get it wrong, and he'll look at me and he'll go and I'm like no, that's not right, and then he'll drag it over to the one that is, and he's like ta-da, and I'm like but that's awesome that they pick it up in their own way, don't they?
Definitely. That, and a lot of the things that Ashton says, I can't even take credit for 5% of it. It's self-taught. Most of the words that he's got from other people, or from obviously copying myself or Cheryl, or other things like YouTube, Netflix, that sort of stuff. I think the school's got a big part to play as well, because they do communicate in so many different ways, because there is lots of different communication styles and levels in there. So they'll communicate verbally, via Makaton, via PEX.
PEX boards, yeah.
And then you'll obviously have children as well that will have the AAC devices.
Yes.
It's not something that we've ever used with Ashton. I don't know if any of you guys have had any experience with them.
We've always looked into it, and it's quite expensive to get hold of.
Yeah.
You can buy them yourselves, or you can go through your doctor to try and get them for those that are more seriously in need of communication.
Mm-hmm.
What does it do? I'll be honest, cards on the table, I don't have a clue what it is. So
it's kind of like it'll have like a board which will have like multiple words on it, and they can essentially like make a sentence up by just hitting the each item. I think that's, if I got that correct.
I think so. There's probably a lot more to it, and I'll probably butcher any sort of definition that I was to you, but I think that is the gist of it. It's kind of like a soundboard, so that they can get words across, and I think you can get ones where they can use the keyboard and spell, because a lot of the time it can be the children, they're just non-verbal, and they do have that capacity to obviously spell.
We've got a soundboard for our youngest. I think we ordered it off of Amazon, and it was just your kind of very general, like, I need help, I need to go to the toilet, yes, no.
Well, that's what this is, and it can be customized, similar to what you were saying earlier, where you've got like your different pictures for things like home or the McDonald's or whatever. For instead of using like a cartoon, it can be used for pictures that they know.
Okay.
We'd mentioned it in our chat, and obviously we'd asked any of the dads if they had any aids. A couple of the dads did say they've used them previously. One of our guests, James, he'd mentioned using it before. And he said initially it didn't work out all that great. The responses were sporadic in nature. It's similar to PEX boards that we tried, but Nathan used it primarily for additional soundboards when he wanted to communicate his food or needs for vocalization. I think he helped previously. It helped him as it went on, but I think it was a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be, and it's, as I say, different children learn in different ways and at different speeds. Yeah, I think it is just one of the ones that there's so many different options to try, different techniques to go through. It's obviously something that you're keen to get right, and we mentioned before about the frustration and the difficulties it can cause if there is that lack of communication. So yeah, definitely something that's a huge focus, and I'm sure there'll be information online with regards to speech and language, and whether that's private through the NHS, information with regards to PEX, Makaton. It springs to mind, I remember when we were trying to get Ashton better at making choices, and there was a few dinners that he would like, and there'd be a few TV shows he'd like. So I remember I'd printed out some choices on like a laminate, and it'd be like Miss Rachel, Katie's Classroom, Mr. Tumble, to try and get him to be able to tell us, as opposed to me kind of urgently flicking through as many options I can, hoping that he would eventually nod his head, to make things a bit easier. It was given those choices without kind of overloading it all with too much choice so in there. So I think it is just trying to make it as personal as possible for your child. If there's something that you know that they're into, then yeah, just do what you can.
I think you don't try too much all at once as well. I think we as parents, obviously, because we want them to speak, we want them to have this, we could go overboard and we'll just like awash with too many things at once. Try to slowly integrate things, like start with one thing, see how that works for your children, and just build on what you can. Obviously, if something's not working, then you can move on, but don't just push everything all at once, because it's just going to be an overload for you and the kids.
Yeah, I think when it comes to that, it is very much just repetition, you know, and it can take weeks, months, years. It can take such a long time. I know with my oldest, something that it took years, for that kind of communication, for him to understand what we were asking of him, for him to then take that and implement it and do it. We now turn around to him and go, right, rubbish in the bin. And for years it was just kind of, he would kind of look at you, and then all of a sudden one day it was just a rubbish in the bin, picked it up and put it in the bin, and it was like, whoa, like
when communication works. And
it's it doesn't, like you said, it is just pure trial and error.
Yeah.
You'll find the style that works for you. I think the most important thing to know is there's lots of resources online, and in like the NHS or in education, there's so much available to you. But like you said, it's really important not to throw all of them in at once. It's about taking your time, implementing something and trying to implement it as part of your child's routine. If that doesn't work, then trying to slowly move them on to something else. It's the like a waiting game. Kind of like what you were saying about patience. It's all about patience with us.
Patience is our bread and butter as parents of ASN kids. Sometimes it's in short supply, but we do our best.
Yeah, definitely. I think you need to be, because I'm not always going to get everything right first time, but it's always about those small victories. Any sort of progress is good progress. And again, if you were to look back from to when they first get diagnosed to today, I'm sure you'd be...
It's 9 days.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
9 days.
Exactly. It's one of these things in my head. I'm always like, I should have taken notes. Similar to what you were saying, Glyn, as well. It'd be good to have taken notes. You would see how massively brilliantly they've been doing, and came on, and you'd obviously be even prouder of how they've done.
And you probably think as well that like a goal that you're looking for at that time, it felt like so kind of out of reach, and then now you look, now you jump ahead to where we are now, and you go, that he's actually he or she's actually achieved so much more than what you maybe thought possible. I think our like we were kind of told from kind of around about 5 or 6 that our oldest would be like almost fully non-verbal, and like some of the phrases that he's now coming out and saying, I'm like, no, he's actually making really good progress. So
yeah, and we have the luxury of living in such an age now where we can document these differently. Obviously, we'll all have several hundreds of videos and pictures on our phones, and we can look back at a cloud file and see what they were like 7 years ago. They can see what they were like last week, and we can see the progression. And it's sometimes it's heartwarming to see. Sometimes it's harder to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing just to touch on quickly, I don't know if your kids have it the same. I'll find with Ashton that he's very situational again. He might be more verbal in the house. It could be, if we're out and about at a soft play, there could be parents that could never have heard Ashton's voice sometimes. It really depends on where they are. So I think, again, it highlights the need for patience, kind of get your environment right if you are looking to try new things, because it all makes a difference.
Yeah, 100%.
100%, yeah. But what was it? I know, as an example, our stepdaughter? She has, like you said, she's kind of had that American twang in her voice, and it's slowly becoming like a kind of Scottish American, which is very interesting.
Okay.
For when she's putting it together. So, but she's like, her latest development is that she is kind of like ending every sentence with almost like almost like a question, like our voice like is kind of going up towards the end, and so she'll be like, oh, I didn't think you were coming today, and she'll like raise her voice like at the end. So that's like
putting a question mark in the teleprompter.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, that's her like current kind of thing that she's working on. But she's kind of came on, like we were talking about, like school and stuff like that. She moved to a new school last year, and the difference is night and day. She got, was it Star Writer the other day, and they couldn't,
amazing.
Yeah, they couldn't get her, like her previous school, not bashing on them at all, but she just, I don't think she wasn't quite getting the same level of support she is now. And the difference, like she wasn't, like, she was struggling to write full sentences, and now she's able to write an actual story. So it's like you said, it's so situational.
Yeah, it's getting that environment right.
Yeah,
love that. Love to hear it. Okay, so as we tend to do on our episodes, we like to shout out a place or an event that's going on within our communities. So today we're going to speak about a place called Kiltoonies. It's a little play village in the small village of Kilsyth. It's a lovely little place run by a woman called Claire. It's essentially it's what it is. It's a play village. It's got a vets in it. It's got a dentist, a cafe, a hairstylist, a fire station,
a little tunnel. Yeah,
the little mining tunnel. A police station. All in this little room. It's got the building site at the back as well. Plenty of fancy dress. They've got the wigs they can play with in the hairdressers. Little interactive screens as well. Like you can do like an X-ray, and it'll show you like a bone or like the damage, a broken foot or whatever. They do events for certain things like Easter and holidays, so or Christmas, where they bring in mascots. It's nice. It's nice environment in there as well. It's very peaceful. The staff in there are amazing. I know when we've spoken to the owner before, she's more than willing to put on extra ASN sessions for kids if she knows they're going to fill up.
Yeah, it's great. Ashton really enjoys it in there as well. He loves kind of getting involved in all the different dress-up activities. It's really good, again, to have a place that is secure. There's not anywhere that they can escape. It's, again, somewhere that the parents can, if they manage to get a seat, and get coffee, get a cake, and switch off. And the ASN sessions are, as they should be, relatively quiet, so there's not any sort of worries about getting too kind of rowdy in there end. So yeah, definitely one that I would also recommend as well as Kiltoonies.
Yeah. And sessions in there aren't expensive as well. I think it works out about £12 for a parent and a child. So if you can get out to them, keep an eye on their socials to see when they have their next ASN session. It does only work for people that drive, obviously, because it is a ways out from the biggest Glasgow area, if that's where you're in. But definitely want to keep an eye on, and definitely want to try if it's something you're interested in.
Excellent. So yeah, that was Kiltoonies, and I think that is a good way to end episode 13. So it's been great to have you guys listening again, and we will talk to you on episode 14.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you want to get involved or get in touch with us, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram under ASN Dad Chat.